I remember the scent of freshly cut grass mixed with my grandmother's lavender. That distinct smell of coming home after a long semester away. It was supposed to be a sweet relief, the familiar embrace of my childhood bedroom, a sanctuary I'd occupied for 18 years. But the moment I stepped through the front door, it hit me not the comfort I craved, but the jarring sight of a rough, newly nailed plywood wall blocking off what was once my haven. No call, no heads up from Eleanor and Robert, my own parents. Just this stark, silent barrier where my bedroom door used to be. The fresh nail marks glinting under the dim hallway light. A chill crawling up my spine, whispering that something was terribly wrong. Before I dive into my story, I'd really appreciate it if you could let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and if you'd consider subscribing to my channel. It would mean the world to me, and help me keep sharing more stories like this. Thank you so much for being here. Clara's return home that evening, which was usually marked by warm hugs, shared laughter, and familiar routines, instead dissolved into an unsettling silence. The air in the house, usually bustling with Eleanor's cheerful anecdotes about her garden club or Robert's booming laughter recounting his latest golfing triumphs, felt thick, heavy, almost suffocating with unspoken tension. At the dinner table, Eleanor and Robert sat across from me, their eyes carefully avoiding mine, darting instead to Isabel, who sat smugly to my right, or to some invisible point just above my head. Their usual animated chatter about neighborhood gossip or their weekend plans was replaced by clipped, almost rehearsed phrases, delivered with an odd, strained politeness that felt entirely out of place, utterly disingenuous. "Your room is just for storage now, Clara," Eleanor stated, her voice unnaturally flat, devoid of any warmth, remorse, or even a hint of apology, as she gestured vaguely towards the section of the house where my bedroom used to be. A dismissive wave of her hand summarily sealed the fate of my private world, a casual gesture that spoke chilling volumes about my perceived importance, or rather, lack thereof. Our family just needs the space for some of Isabel's things. You know, for her future. She's got so many big plans now, so many exciting dreams to pursue abroad. My heart felt a sharp, painful squeeze, a visceral contraction, not just because my personal space, my sanctuary, had been so carelessly stripped away without a single discussion or even a courtesy phone call, but because of the sheer indifference in their tone, the blatant disregard for my feelings, as if my very existence was an inconvenience, an afterthought in the grand scheme of Isabel's ascendancy. Isabel, my older sister, sat beside them, a smug, knowing smile playing on her lips, her eyes gleaming with a quiet, almost triumphant satisfaction as she slowly, deliberately, brought an expensive crystal glass filled with a deep ruby wine to her lips, a vintage I knew our family rarely, if ever, afforded. Certainly not for a casual Tuesday dinner. It was a silent, potent declaration of her indisputable favored status, a stark, painful reminder of my diminished place in their hierarchy. And I knew then, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones like a cold stone, that this was about much more than just old boxes and dusty keepsakes. This was about power, preference, and a dark secret that felt too heavy to bear, slowly festering beneath the polished surface of our seemingly perfect suburban life. The night stretched long and oppressive, each minute ticking by with an agonizing slowness that seemed to mock my restless mind. The house's usual comforting creaks and groans, the gentle hum of the refrigerator, were replaced by an ominous quiet that amplified my gnawing unease, wrapping around me like a shroud. Sleep was an elusive concept as I tossed and turned on the uncomfortable guest bed, the unfamiliar mattress feeling alien and unyielding beneath me, a stark physical manifestation of my abrupt displacement. My mind raced, frantically piecing together fragments of hushed conversations I'd overheard in the past few months, whispers about mounting debts, about Isabel's university tuition soaring to astronomical heights, about the difficult decisions that had to be made to maintain their lavish facade. I recalled the casual dismissals of my own academic achievements, always overshadowed by Isabel's perceived brilliance, the overt, almost theatrical favoritism towards her, particularly since she announced her grand European travel and postgraduate plans, plans that seemed to defy our family's modest financial reality. It was always about Isabel, her needs, her future, her exorbitant expenses. A memory flickered, a tiny spark in the vast darkness of my confusion and growing resentment, a faint echo from a simpler time, a loose floorboard beneath the window in my old room. It wasn't just any loose floorboard. It was the loose floorboard, a secret cubby where I'd hidden childish treasures, handwritten letters from old friends, a worn-out diary filled with my most private thoughts, and a small, tarnished key. It was a place I'd forgotten for years, a small act of rebellion against their suffocating rules, a tiny pocket of freedom, in a home that often felt suffocating, a private space where I could truly be myself, a desperate, almost reckless hope ignited within me, pulling me out of bed with a quiet resolve that belied the turmoil churning inside, drawing me towards the now impenetrable plywood wall that separated me from my past, from a part of myself they had so carelessly tried to erase. My fingers, cold and a little numb with apprehension, traced the rough grain of the plywood, following the harsh, fresh line of the new nails that pierced into the doorframe like tiny metallic accusations. The wood felt rough, alien beneath my touch. Then my hand moved to the familiar warmth of the windowsill, its smooth, cool surface a comforting constant in this profoundly changed landscape, a tangible link to a more innocent time, before secrets festered. With a careful, almost reverent press, the loose floorboard shifted with a faint, almost imperceptible give, revealing a small, dark recess beneath. My heart pounded a frantic rhythm against my ribs as I fumbled my hand inside, brushing against something cold and metallic, exactly where I remembered leaving it so many years ago. It was there, just as I had pictured it in my mind's eye, a beacon of possibility in the encroaching darkness, a small, tarnished silver key, still intact, its dull gleam a testament to its age and the countless secrets it had held. It was a relic from countless childhood moments when I'd used it to sneak back into my room after a grounding, or just to escape the stifling atmosphere of family arguments, a tiny symbol of my quiet defiance. But this time, the weight of the key in my palm felt different, heavier, laden with an unsettling premonition, a sense of gravity that transcended mere childhood mischief. It was as if this tiny, unassuming key held the power to unlock not just a physical room that had been so brazenly denied to me, but a hidden truth, a dark, festering secret that would inevitably shatter the fragile, carefully constructed peace of my family, revealing the rotten core beneath their polished facade. The profound silence of the house seemed to press in on me, amplifying the anticipation, each beat of my heart echoing loudly in my ears, a drumroll to an unknown reveal. My hand trembled, a slight, uncontrollable tremor running through my arm, a physical manifestation of the apprehension coiling in my stomach, as I inserted the old key into the newly installed, gleaming brass lock on what was once my bedroom door. It was a stark contrast, the ancient, dull silver of the key against the modern, polished brass of the lock. a visual metaphor for the clash between a cherished past and the painful present. The soft click echoed in the silent house like a whispered confession, a small yet profoundly resonant sound that both promised and threatened revelation, reverberating through the hushed hallway, shaking the very foundations of my understanding. As the door, surprisingly light beneath my touch, swung inward with a faint creak, a musty, dusty smell hit me, thick and cloying, immediately telling me this room hadn't been aired out in months, perhaps not since I'd left for college. My eyes, struggling to adjust to the dim light filtering in from the hallway, strained to discern shapes in the gloom. I scanned the room, expecting to see piles of Isabel's forgotten belongings, old university textbooks stacked haphazardly against the walls, perhaps some boxes of clothes she'd deemed too casual for her new, sophisticated life, crammed into my former sanctuary. But instead, lying starkly in the center of the otherwise empty, almost barren room, partially covered by a thin, grimy tarp, was the unmistakable, revered shape of my grandmother Florence's prized cello case. My breath hitched, catching painfully in my throat, a dry, ragged sound that felt trapped in my chest. The cello. It wasn't just an instrument. It was a living, breathing part of her, a conduit for her very soul, an extension of her artistic spirit, her lifelong passion. It was her most treasured possession, an antique instrument that had been passed down through generations of musicians in our family, each scratch and worn spot on its polished wooden surface a testament to its long, storied history and the countless melodies it had helped create, a legacy imbued with love and dedication. Beneath it, barely visible under another edge of the tarp, lay another case, equally familiar and precious her vintage violin, its delicate form silhouetted beneath the cheap plastic, a silent companion in its bewildering captivity. These were the instruments that had mysteriously gone missing 6 months ago, their disappearance shrouded in vague theories of a robbery and hushed sympathetic conversations, a crime that had baffled everyone, including the local police. Their supposed theft had plunged my grandmother into a deep, silent despair that had visibly aged her, stealing the music from her eyes and the spring from her step, diminishing her vibrant spirit day by agonizing day. My gaze dropped, drawn by a sickening flash of white, to a crumpled piece of paper peeking out from under the edge of the tarp. It was a document I instantly recognized. My blood running cold with dawning horror, an insurance claim form, clearly stating high-value asset theft and listing an astronomical sum of money as the payout. The date on the form was chillingly precise, just weeks after the supposed robbery. The pieces of a sinister puzzle clicked into place with a horrifying, sickening clarity. A cold, utterly sickening realization washed over me then, a tidal wave of betrayal so immense it left me gasping for air, clutching at my chest as if to contain the sheer physical pain. It wasn't Isabel who had taken them. Not some random burglar Eleanor and Robert had so convincingly, so theatrically, claimed had broken into Grandmother Florence's modest home. It was Eleanor and Robert, my own parents, the architects of my childhood, who had orchestrated this vile charade, this elaborate fraud. The pieces clicked into place with terrifying precision, forming a grotesque mosaic of deceit, each shard a sharp, agonizing jab to my conscience, their constant performative complaints about Isabel's increasingly extravagant overseas study plans, her sudden inexplicable influx of spending money in designer clothes, the conspicuous, unsettling absence of the instruments from Grandmother Florence's house during my last visit, a detail I had innocently dismissed at the time. They had not only cold-heartedly orchestrated the theft of my grandmother's most cherished possessions, callously stripping her of her legacy, but had also shamelessly filed a false insurance claim, a blatant, criminal act of fraud, and then use the ill-gotten money, the proceeds of their treachery, to fund Isabel's luxurious adventures, her European dreams, all while my beloved grandmother, a woman who had given them everything, withered from a broken heart, her spirit dying a little each day with the perceived loss of her musical legacy. The depth of their deception was staggering, a gaping, festering wound in my understanding of family, tearing at the very fabric of my trust. My blood ran cold, a glacial current replacing the warm flow in my veins, chilling me to the bone, leaving me feeling hollowed out. The sheer audacity, the chilling callousness of it all was beyond my comprehension, a level of moral depravity I never thought my parents capable of. My grandmother, a woman who had dedicated her entire life to the pursuit of music, who cherished those instruments more than any material possession, more than life itself, was slowly fading away in the sterile confines of the hospital, her vibrant spirit crushed by their supposed loss, her final days marked by profound sorrow. My heart ached, a deep, lacerating pain that resonated with every beat, a constant throb of grief and anger, not just for the stolen legacy, for the inanimate objects that held so much meaning, but for the vile, unforgivable betrayal from the very people who had given me life, who were supposed to protect and nurture me, to teach me right from wrong, to guide me with integrity. My hand, trembling with a volatile mixture of righteous fury and profound despair, instinctively went to my phone. My fingers, almost independently of my conscious thought, driven by an innate, unyielding sense of justice, punched in the numbers 911. My voice, when it emerged, was a choked whisper, raw with unshed tears and burning indignation, barely audible above the frantic pounding in my ears, as I reported the unforgivable crime committed by my own parents. The immense weight of that decision, the crushing knowledge that I was intentionally tearing my family apart, exposing their dark secrets to the world, pressed down on me, yet a fierce, unyielding resolve burned brighter, hotter than any fear justice for Grandmother Florence. No matter the cost, no matter the consequences to us all, the wailing sirens tore through the quiet suburban night, an almost surreal banshee-like sound that amplified the already surrealness of the situation, cutting through the heavy silence that had just moments ago enveloped the neighborhood. Their piercing cry grew louder, closer, echoing off the neatly trimmed hedges and silent houses, until the flashing blue and red lights painted an eerie, pulsing glow across my old bedroom window, casting dancing shadows on the plywood barrier, transforming our once idyllic street into a crime scene. I stood there, rooted in the middle of my haunted bedroom, the cello case a silent, monumental, accusing witness to the unfolding drama, its dark, polished shape a stark contrast to the cheap, hastily erected plywood wall. Eleanor and Robert emerged from their bedroom, their faces drained of all color, ghostly pale, etched with a volatile mixture of terror and burning resentment as their eyes landed on me, standing there, unapologetic, flanked by two stern-faced uniformed police officers, their authoritative presence a stark symbol of consequences finally arriving. Isabel, my sister, appeared behind them, her face contorted with a mixture of disbelief, betrayal, and pure, unadulterated rage, muttering incoherent curses under her breath as her elaborate European dreams, her carefully constructed future, crumbled into dust before her very eyes, destroyed by her parents' greed and my unwavering resolve. The tension in the air was so thick, so palpable, it felt suffocating, a heavy shroud of unspoken accusations and irrevocably shattered trust. Then, the piercing, insistent flash of an ambulance's lights joined the police cruisers, adding another layer of grim, urgent reality to the already chaotic scene. Confirming my worst fears about Grandmother Florence's fragile state, I watched, my heart in my throat, a frantic bird trapped in my chest, as the paramedics carefully wheeled out Grandmother Florence on a stretcher, her small yet frail form almost swallowed by the sterile white sheets. Her face was pale and thin, her body a shadow of its former vibrant self, weakened by grief and illness. But her eyes, though tired and weak from the ordeal, still held that familiar spark of intelligence, that quiet strength, and an undeniable warmth when they found mine across the distance. As our gazes met across the chaotic front lawn, a silent understanding passed between us. A profound, unbreakable bond forged in shared pain and unwavering love. And I felt a wave of profound relief wash over me, mixed with an overwhelming sadness for what she had endured, for the terrible price of their deception. My heart broke for her, for the suffering she had silently borne, for the music that had been stolen from her. But in that precise, agonizing moment, as the ambulance doors closed and carried her away towards care and justice, I knew, with absolute certainty, that resonated deep within my soul, that I had done the right thing, even if it meant shattering the fragile, carefully constructed illusion of the family I had once believed in, even if it meant standing utterly alone against them. I had made my choice, a choice for justice, for truth, and for Grandmother Florence, the only woman who had ever shown me unconditional love, untainted by expectation or manipulation, a love as pure and steadfast as her beautiful music. The ensuing months blurred into a nightmarish procession of endless court dates, each one a grueling test of endurance, an endless cycle of complex legal jargon and raw emotional torment. There were intense interrogations, where every minute detail of my parents' elaborate deceit was meticulously unraveled, exposed under the harsh glare of judicial scrutiny, and gut-wrenching testimonies that laid bare the full, sordid truth of Eleanor and Robert's meticulously planned insurance fraud scheme, a tangled web of lies spanning years. I sat alone in the witness box, a silent, stoic observer to their slow, inevitable downfall, watching as my parents, once so confident and controlling, were publicly stripped of their dignity and privilege, their reputations irrevocably tarnished, their social standing shattered. They were ultimately sentenced to house arrest and extensive community service for their felony convictions, a stark and humiliating punishment that brought a grim, if bittersweet, satisfaction. Isabel's grand plans for overseas study, the very dreams my parents had financed with stolen money, were irrevocably canceled, leaving her future in tatters and forcing her to return home to a bleak, uncertain future, devoid of the glamour she so desperately craved. She was just another victim of their greed, though one who had eagerly benefited from it. They tried relentlessly to reach me, their phone calls and text messages a relentless barrage of increasingly desperate threats and pathetic pleas for forgiveness or understanding, a last-ditch attempt to reclaim some semblance of control over me. But I simply turned off my phone, cutting off all digital communication, then changed my number entirely, erecting an impenetrable barrier between us, a definitive boundary that would not be crossed. No explanations were offered from my end, no apologies were given, and certainly no reconciliation was sought. Just a profound, almost serene sense of relief washed over me as I severed the final suffocating ties with them. A liberating act of self-preservation that felt long overdue. A vital surgery to excise a toxic, cancerous presence from my life. While my old family spiraled further into shame, internal conflict, and the public humiliation of their punishment, their lives a tangled mess of legal woes and shattered dreams. A new, quieter dawn broke for Grandmother Florence and me. With my devoted care and constant companionship, her health miraculously improved, day by day, her frail body regaining strength and her eyes, once clouded by sorrow, regaining their vibrant sparkle as her beloved antique instruments were carefully, reverently returned to her, restored to their rightful owner. The joy in her eyes when she saw them again, when she ran her fingers over their polished surfaces, was a balm to my own wounded soul, a profound testament to the healing power of justice and the enduring beauty of art. At her 90th birthday celebration, a small, intimate gathering of old friends, fellow musicians, and former students filled her cozy living room with genuine warmth and laughter, a stark contrast to the strained silence and palpable tension that had always pervaded my parents' home. I watched her, serene and radiant, a true matriarch, as she sat at her grand piano, the instrument a physical extension of her joy, her very being. Her aged fingers, though no longer as nimble as they once were, still danced gracefully across the keys, coaxing a familiar melody from my childhood, a soft, soothing lullaby she used to sing to me on quiet evenings, her voice a gentle murmur in the background, filling the room with love. In that sacred moment, surrounded by authentic love and affection, a new community built on shared passion and respect, I knew with unwavering certainty that I had found my true family, not through the arbitrary bonds of blood, but through unconditional love, mutual respect, and unwavering understanding. Time continued its steady, relentless march forward, and I resumed my university studies with renewed vigor, a fresh perspective on my own future, but now with a soul immeasurably lighter, unburdened by the crushing weight of deceit and betrayal that had once suffocated me. The shadow of their actions no longer loomed over my life, allowing me to breathe freely for the first time in years, truly charting my own course, unhindered by their manipulation. I dedicated every spare moment to Grandmother Florence, cherishing our time together, each conversation a precious gift, each shared moment a quiet joy. We would listen to classical music, her favorite symphonies filling the quiet house with their majestic sounds, and I would listen intently as she recounted her cherished stories of bygone concert tours, of grand stages and roaring applause, her eyes twinkling with the memories, her voice gaining strength and clarity with each shared anecdote, a living history book. Each time I saw her gentle smile, a quiet, profound joy filled me, reminding me that I had made the right choice, no matter how painful it had been, no matter the immediate cost of severing those toxic, manipulative family ties. The profound peace I now felt, the deep sense of rightness in my actions, was something no material wealth, no superficial acceptance, no manipulative relationship could ever provide. It was a peace hard won, earned through difficult decisions, unwavering integrity, and the courage to stand for what was fundamentally right. My life had definitively turned a new page, unfolding into a future entirely my own, where I stood utterly independent and stronger than ever before. The echoes of their past manipulation had faded to a whisper, a distant, powerless memory. I carried no regrets for what I had done, no lingering doubts about my choices, for they were mine, forged in fire, tested by adversity. I sought no forgiveness from those who had betrayed me, understanding that their capacity for genuine remorse was non-existent, a void that could never be filled by my efforts or by any false reconciliation. And I certainly needed no explanations from them. Their actions had spoken volumes, louder than any words could convey, etching their true character into my memory. I had found my own liberation and true, unadulterated happiness, not by attempting to re enter the dysfunctional system that had so callously rejected me, but by actively forging a new life, a future built on solid foundations of integrity, love, trust, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. Beside Grandmother Florence, who had not only recovered her precious instruments, but had also taught me, through her resilience and boundless love, that family isn't merely where you're born, but where you are cherished, respected, and truly belong. I embraced a future built on authenticity and genuine connection, leaving the toxic past firmly behind, a distant, fading echo that no longer held power over me.